Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to my podcast. I'm Heimo Scheuch, the CEO of Wienerberger, and today I have a great pleasure to have a guest with me who actually comes from India, but lives now in Berlin. And it's always fascinating to talk to Mrs. Kundoo when we talk about cultural differences between Europe and India, which we will do in a minute. And obviously her experience with us Europeans when we talk about building and social housing. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
You are actually work and live mostly in India, and since a couple of years are based here in the heart of Europe, in Berlin. And you see the current developments in Europe, obviously, when we talk about not only sustainability, but housing, the access to housing, the climate change, all these discussions that are very, very strongly led in Germany right now. What do you really feel as an Indian with your background and completely different challenges that your home country faces, that is growing and has now, by the way, surpassed China with respect to population and soon will become probably the third biggest world economy?
Mm-hmm. So many questions. I don't know where to start from. But you said, how do I feel as an Indian? Mm-hmm. ... So I would say as an Indian, what I first of all feel is that we are more common than different. However different we may appear, these are very superficial differences. I have always seen human race, the Homo sapiens, as one. They are. It's not just my perspective. But sometimes we all live in our own imagined realities. So I found in the Western world that there is a tendency to focus on the difference than on the common. And I personally feel a lot of contemporary problems has to do with the attitude of how we look at a thing or even how we look at a problem. Or sometimes we manufacture problems so that we have something to do.
That's a very interesting thought, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's actually fascinating what you say, because in the current discussions that we have in Europe especially, with respect to a lot of challenges in the world, politically, culturally, financially, you are absolutely right. We focus on the differences, yeah, and we try to focus on our issues, problems, or whatever you call them, and neglect that there are other people around the world who have the same, basically, because climate is something which we all have to face.
Well, we have to all face, but we have not all equally created it. Some people we know who have contributed much more to the creation of the problem than to the solution. And whenever we give them solutions, of which most solutions have to do with reflecting on how humans poise and posture themselves in the environment, not only in the environment. Nowadays, people think environment is something external to us, as if it's just some external thing like a planet or a material or everything outside of us. But even there, here I see the perspective is to think about problems external to ourselves. And therefore, whenever a solution or when there's a brainstorming and it comes to reflecting about us, our lifestyle, immediately they say things like, wir sind ja in Deutschland, and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. So what does that actually mean? Does it mean, what does that sentence mean? I went around asking a lot of people, what do you mean when you say that? I know what you mean. But often it means that we have our habits. We are in our comfort zone. Let's solve every problem with another technology or with another gadget or another something. Let's now, instead of buying, the latest fashionable thing, let's buy a slightly 10% reduced energy version of that thing. So my question is, what's the point? I have asked myself, since I've been coming to Europe, what's the point of doing efficiently well things that need not be done at all? But sometimes we forget that.
We do indeed. And let's talk about one thing which I think we forgot completely. That's the access to decent housing and social housing. Yeah, You have big problems in India creating housing and obviously accessible and affordable housing. The same is in Germany, the same is in Austria, the same you have in the United States, by the way. So we get in an even bigger problem for people that have actually not so much income or are not at all income and have a decent housing. So I think from your perspective, when you say differences are made up by people, we all face the same challenge. And to really create housing of the future, it is to really think the necessity of social housing through. Who is financing it? Who should be doing it? How should it look like? And what sort of basic instruments we should provide the people for in order to get to this?
I think just like housing, many of the shortages, including the energy crunch and everything, it has to do with the way humans manage resources. And in resources, it also, land is included, whether you can own land or not, whether the city is providing you housing, or just is it a free market for developers, and or is it a mixture of both, that the city provides you housing at a certain cost, and the developers will somehow it'll balance itself out if both operate. So there are so many factors at work. But when I would look at, because you made the distinction between the developed countries and the developing countries, it was very interesting for me to note when I first came here that the shortage of housing is not just a problem that we thought we had due to a simplified idea of affordability that we had. But when you look at the same problem, whether you're in New York, whether you're in Denmark, everywhere. So then when you come down to those layers, I've found that you can group the problems into these categories. One of them is, in the case of India, it's about how people, after working 8 hours or 10 hours a day, the wage does not reflect all their needs, from medical needs to education, school, and housing. So in India, there has been a transition which is due to urbanization and rapid urbanization. So what happens is, instead of having their ancestral homes or plots in their villages, people are moving to
city.
Everybody's moving due to the economic drivers, which, by the way, have not to do with only India, because everyone's producing their things in India. They want their offices in those standards, air-conditioned, whatever. So there is, on one hand, suddenly too much of a demand, too short a time to supply it, the wage not reflecting the all needs, and the fact that the globalization-related new demands, with central heating, central cooling, all of that kind of standard, is increasing the per capita, cost.
May I just make one remark in this? Sorry to interrupt you again, but I was traveling over the last 20 years extensively in India. And what I think is something went a little bit wrong, that the rural parts of India were completely forgotten. Rural parts were considered agriculture, not so developed, low, not only income, but also education, etc. So everything was concentrated on the mega cities. Yeah, the political development, the economical growth, the strong one, the industrial growth. And therefore, I think when you look at India's development, one should give much more focus now on the rural part, the smaller, when you call cities or even villages, because the infrastructure is lacking when you look there.
Exactly.
Yeah? So everything is moving away. And I just take, for example, Bangalore. We have built a factory in Bangalore nearly now 20 years ago. It was in the rural part. Now today it's a sort of lane highway there. It's now developing very rapidly, etc. But this is now 50 kilometers away from Bangalore already. So it's growing dramatically. But when you go another 2 hours further, then you have rural parts, which are not at all developed, where schools are lacking, where the whole infrastructure, from the basic one, social, education, health, to also small and mid-sized companies.
Yeah.
And I think here the planning, also from a state perspective, is something which has
True. But you know, when you compare about how Europe and America, when they went through urbanization, if you look 100 and something years ago, when Berlin became what it is now, you know, there was time to lay in the infrastructure and work systematically. One of the important things to take into account is the point in time where India is urbanizing. It's also driven by global factors. And even in those days, how does a city finance its urbanization? It is through the surplus that it puts aside, right? That's how you build things. But we are a colonized country. The surplus didn't stay with us. Our surplus was taken to develop other countries elsewhere. So there are those factors that are a big baggage on India. And actually, I would like to really reverse the problem that when we go to India, the problem is seen for all to see, open and simple. And it's easier for us to address the solution because the people in India, they are flexible, they are adaptable, they are tolerant, they are used to a lot of diversity and adaptation. They've had to adapt. Now, when I would like to really talk about this with one foot in each area, okay? So when I look at the problems of housing, that from outside, the houses look fine in the developed countries. There's no less of an affordability crisis in all of these countries, and they are less able to, first of all, see the problem. The problems are underlying and deeply spread. For example, we have raised the housing standard to such an extent. Every time there's a new technology, we have to have it. And now, even if somebody wants, that's a problem for me of the West. Like if I come to a room and I want to draw my own curtains, even in a hotel, I'm forced to go and find where's the button that I can then press it. Like I enter the canteen of my own university, I have to first press something so that something will press something, and then, you know, I'm not allowed to use my own hand, and then I have to pay for another gym so that I can go and use my hand there to remain healthy, and we are forced to pay that price. Just because someone invented a curtain drawer, now we all have to use it. I'm sorry, I'm exaggerating to make the point. But what happens is, the standard that we have raised the house to, including the kind of insulation, the kind of, who's going to pay that really? The people have to pay it. And look at the percentage of your salary that goes into a housing. I think this is all, I don't know. I mean, I know from the Western perspective, it looks like those problems are enormous. I find it much worse because who's going to go back and undo all the mistakes? You know?
Absolutely,
so while we want India to develop, I personally strongly aspire that we do not go the Western way. And I do not I would like us all to redefine what development means, what progress means in the times of our concerns about sustainability.
Well, I think when I listen to you and when I travel to the US as you do and throughout Europe, we are living in a phase of change. A lot of people are asking these questions. We are not allowed to talk about them. Because if you
not
do,
even here on the podcast?
With me you are, indeed.
Okay.
But if I may say so, we are not allowed to talk about this because otherwise you would be considered as reactionary or opposed to progress, opposed to innovation. I think the good thing is that step by step we will engage in this because this current crisis that we're living through with inflation that is growing, costs are increasing, and what you are saying, can we afford it? Question mark. Because what you are saying, if I have this automation going on and digitalization going, it consumes more and more energy. It becomes more and more expensive for each of us. And at the end of the day, we can't afford it. Yeah?
Well, I'm also not ruling it out. What I'm saying is, in this, we are talking about smart cities, we're talking about smart technologies. My question is, shouldn't we be smarter than the technology? I mean, how the human being not only has an inbuilt computer, we are also wise as opposed to only smart. So, yes, technologies must go on, but must I use it everywhere? Where is the discrimination? Should we not be developing a discrimination saying that, you know what, this technology is fantastic for this and this, but I really don't need it for my curtain, or some people need it, not everybody.
It's a very good question, a very valid one. But I think obviously such questions need to be asked in a more governmental state way as well, because obviously you need to change some regulations. We have been becoming over-regulated in our part of the world, if you may allow me to say that,
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
we want to regulate everything because we think, for example, when you take the current subjects like climate change or economical growth and the whole aspects with inflation, that we need to regulate further and not let the humans decide how they want to address it. Yeah, and therefore,
but
yeah?
I believe that look, whatever I have done in my life so far and wherever I've got, I believe if I were to leave it to the politicians, I would be waiting still. Okay, I'm not saying no to I love the politicians actually, okay, because I would love to do that, but I have some other role to play in society. So I'm glad for them to do their bit, but I don't want to just sit there passive. So whether I'm in a school as a student, whether I'm a member of a society, every day I make decisions, and I think everybody makes those micro decisions every day. And I really believe in the consciousness, and I believe there is a contagious aspect. Good and bad things can rapidly spread. Look, I also like to look at the good examples. When I came to Berlin the first time, 30 something years ago, everybody is making fun of those eco people who were insisting on eating organic food. And they were saying, I'd rather eat half as much and have it organic. And people were saying, you'll never get everybody, wir sind ja in Deutschland, that type of thing. So, but look, who got the last laugh, you know? So the point is, I don't even believe in creating again a new polarization between these people and those people. I think everybody should do what they are passionate about. So what I've done in my life is like, if I really am passionate about a thing, now we keep thinking it's a norm that doesn't let us. Yes, but it's not that. There are many people who've spent their time. I have a friend, she teaches in Vienna and lives in Berlin too. She has built her house with Porotone without using this kind of bad Wärmedämmung because the same norms were applied, but she sat and did the math. It's not the norm. It's very easy. I think the main problem is people. We have raised a few generations who are not taking responsibility. I feel. I think each and every household you have to think, okay, what can I do? There's something I can do. I can choose to drink this water or not to drink this water. I can choose to forget about that curtain operator. I can choose to not have a curtain. I can choose not to live in that house.
Definitely,
every day there are things I can choose.
Yeah.
So in the end, we all make it. And and I think the shift is also happening because all the people are asking for it.
But still, I must say, I mean, I 100% agree with you, by the way. It's a pleasure for me listening to you when you say passion, because obviously with us, Wienerberger, 200 years old, the company, 20,000 people that are working with passion. Yeah, and we always try to find new ways and ways to shift and develop construction and infrastructure further, make it not only cheaper, more efficient, but also sustainable. Yeah, in this sense, to protect resources and energy. But still, when I look at the change process, we could build, and I come back to my social housing issue, we could build much cheaper, much more efficient, and much healthier houses than we are building it today. Because the requests, the laws, the regulations that we unfortunately have in place, And that's not I did them, but and I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying we still need to think about those if they are really good or efficient. I think this is the process that we need to start, because then we can make it much cheaper, much more efficient and faster. Because then people don't pay so much money for the housing, and we will get more housing done. And when I see the whole discussion in Germany, prefabrication, quick, fast, and construction, it's going in the wrong way again, because it's inefficient. Yeah. Yeah,
and I think we have to start looking at natural resources alongside human resources. I think this whole idea of time is money is a thing I have questioned from the West. Also, this for me is a dogma, because a lot of times, keeping the human being out of the equation and only making sure the machines are busy has led to the human engagement becoming numb. And you're talking about passion. I just want to share one thing. My PhD was called Building with Fire. It's because it was about brick, but it was because of passion, fire. Building with Fire was because I had my PhD was about the work of Ray Meeker, a Californian ceramist, who has pioneered the technique to build large brick houses in situ, mud houses fired in situ. That means the joints are also mud. Right. So I have also done some houses in this technique, and many other radical kind of thing. But if you don't have passion, then you can't sustain when you have difficulty. Correct. And that's so. I think we have to generate passion, because if we I think people who are passionate, they will retain their common sense, and they will know where they want to innovate and go beyond the conventional habits. So I think as a society, I'm also a professor, I try to do that bit also there, that we try to not dampen the passion of the students. If they ask inconvenient questions, they should. That's the job of the next generation.
It should be.
Don't hush them.
Yeah, but that's also the same in a company, to be honest. Yeah, we need people who ask questions, who actually obviously put into question what we do, because that's what you're saying. We should not always use the same path. We should go away. And I think what we need to, and I'm very appreciative that you as a professor do this with your students, we try to do it with our employees, to have critical ones. To have ones that actually question the process that we do, how we do it, and that takes us to a next level. Yeah? And when you talk about passion and common sense, I can only say to you, we have it in our corporate culture.
I'm glad,
and sometimes I worry that some people where have they put the common sense? Yeah. And that's my remarks about the rural India. I come from the rural parts of Austria.
Where?
Yeah, from Carinthia, the mountains. And common sense there is your way how to survive, because you need to work through the year.
But that's what I feel actually, no other species on the planet can take their life for granted and be entitled. That's my question to what the developed country is like. Comfort zone is not a good thing.
No.
Comfort zone is not only a good thing. Just be in the limit to be enough. The decision between adventure and security, I think in what you've seen in India, when you see people in difficulties, it's by itself, it's like facing life. It's not every tiger has to wake up in the morning and decide. There's not insurance behind them, and what they're going to do. Every bee goes to work, and they don't make a difference between work and life, because they see that they are working for themselves to live. Work is an extension of your life. It is to realize your potential. But sometimes in the post-industrialization, and so I don't make a critique on the West. For me, the critique I'm making in the West is of mainstream industrialization. When our countries have been industrialized, but not it's not standardized as only, we don't have only SML, of everything. So we have to get ourselves measured, figure out what we need, and so on, and sometimes go for the ML, whatever, but not only. Whereas whatever I've criticized here up to now, it is not a particular nation or a particular state of development. I'm criticizing what happened to us when we became industrialized, mainstream industrialized. Just because we've made machines and outsourced things to them, we should think whether we outsource things like doing our laundry and stuff like that and use our time better, or whether we should outsource the whole living. And just because you're using robots, you don't be the robot. The whole idea is let the robot do its work, you be the human, and have a good life. And I think sometimes this whole idea of, just measuring, that's why when I talked about time is money, So we did all of this, the West. I'm saying we because I'm now here in Berlin. We've outsourced everything. We're saving our time. We're saving human time. Do we have more time, each and every human? Why are they just getting illnesses out of stress that they don't have time? So where did all the time go that they saved? These are very important things to think about.
But you said also wisely, and the human being needs to think about what is really its purpose and what we serve. Yeah?
Exactly.
And this is something we need to be more, and the future generations need to do this more and more. Yeah.
And I think what all we can do, I think, is to not suppress them, because they know how to live. Like every plant will break out a shoot from here, create roots. Life is powerful and we can't do anything to suppress it. But the point is, we create rules, we create all kinds of things based on our comfort zone, thinking that the best we can give our child is a comfort zone or our next generation. Maybe not. Maybe
Indeed.
we have to let them understand the value of life and not feel entitled and not take things for granted. And things will cost us all less. And by the way, I want to mention one thing. All the problems that you mentioned, and wherever I go, and we are always all this whining about this problem and that. Most of those problems are man-made. In other areas of the world, when we say there's a problem, we're talking about a tsunami, we are talking about natural catastrophes that you cannot avoid. But at least the man-made ones, first of all, we can make a difference between the natural laws, such as gravity and climate. Let's please not question it, surrender to it. And the man-made laws, please question everything and see if it can be done better. But often we see in the younger students, they don't know they just are obedient to the man-made laws and defying natural laws, like putting the window on the wrong side of the building.
I think what is better to finish a very passionate discussion with you with these words, and because I think it's so important that we come back to common sense again, that we give, and you said something very beautiful for me, you said life is powerful. And what is better to think of this, what power we have, all of us, the humans, and not cut bridges and destroy bridges. I think what we are currently doing, but create bridges again of cultural exchange of thoughts and the philosophy also. Yeah, because it's this approach that is lacking right now. Because when you are saying engaging with each other to find new solution, it means that we talk first of all. And today we are not even talking. We are cutting bridges, and this is politically and geopolitically a big risk. And together, I think when you talk about India, Europe, we can sort of tackle these challenges together much better than each of us alone. And giving back the force to the people that they think about new solutions, and that you nicely put it, the mankind problems, that we create ourselves every day. And we trend to, as I said earlier, to over-regulate, also in the building world. We should give this power back to the people and try to launch a new approach when it comes to the housing.
May I add just the summary? Like when you talked about the human, in all my years of reflection, I feel the purpose individually and collectively, I feel this is a common acknowledgement also, a commonly acknowledged thing, that the best is to amplify the human potential. That is something we can say as a common ground. But what is the unique thing to be a human and to survive and evolve is actually 3 qualities for me. One is imagination. Humans have imagination. We can imagine anything. And we can try out new things. We can experiment, innovation. All these things you are doing. So I'm mentioning it, summarizing it. And the third is the capacity to adapt, like we adapted during COVID. So these are the 3 qualities that are behind evolution, and I think we have to celebrate these qualities in humans, and then of course we have our optimism. So
let's keep the optimism,
yes,
and cultivate the imagination.
Yes.
I know it would be great to continue. I know we will do it in India pretty soon, I hope.
That sounds promising.
Thanks for coming by. I know that you have to run for the future BRIC Days.
I love BRICS.
Yeah, I know. And we love BRICS as well, as you can imagine. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much.
And hope to see you soon. Bye-bye.
Looking forward. Thank you.
Thank you.